I love working with those special populations who, to be honest, perhaps benefit more from Pilates than, just the average person walking in. And to me, it's like, how do we create that space and build community around that? Because my big things are, connection, collaboration, and community. And I believe that's what we experience in every, interaction we have with other people, and even within our studio. I always say they come for the Pilates and they stay for the community.
Welcome to Imperfect Momming. Our children are constantly looking to us for examples. The term role model doesn't quite cut it here. We are shaping their worldview with every move we make. You see, it's not in the lectures we give or moments where we are actively attempting to teach them. It's in the micro movements we make, the unconscious ways in which we navigate life. We are constantly teaching our children how to show up for themselves, their friends, their future partners, and even their future children. So what can we do to ensure we are raising thoughtful, compassionate, self-aware human beings? We have to become them ourselves. No one is perfect, but we can still all be better, and it starts with self-healing. Let's get to it.
Welcome back to Imperfect Momming, and we have a very special guest today, Amy Rost. Welcome to Imperfect Momming.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So my name is Amy Rost. I am the mom of 4, including a set of twins in there. And then my oldest son in 2010 was diagnosed with a rare degenerative neuromuscular disease. And that sort of was, I always joke that was the sort of the pivot point in our lives where everything changed. We couldn't go back to where it was, and we knew going forward was not going to be anything like we had expected. And at that time I worked corporate. I was an administrator in a spine clinic for almost 20 years. And in 2016, I left that job to pursue my passion of Pilates. And it was in pursuit of really finding better work-life balance. And I was going to own my schedule. And it was going to be the schedule for my family and for my son as his needs progressed. And I never looked back. I opened a little Pilates studio, a little boutique studio in my basement. That's where I am today. And honestly, I never looked back because it was the right change for our family. And honestly, it was the right change for me to be able to somehow facilitate harmony amongst the craziness.
So
yeah.
Just so I have the sequence correct, you is degenerative disease, and then you transition into the Pilates careers.
Yeah. So when he was initially diagnosed, I was working in corporate, and so as we started to unravel what this disease meant and what the progression was, I then, started to realize there was no way I was going to be able to take care of everyone working a 50-hour plus job a week and commuting and all the things. And I needed to somehow get, in a moment where we felt like no control, get some control back in our lives about some of the choices and the decisions we were making. And that's then when I pursued down the road that road to Pilates.
Gotcha. And I only ask because with my story, I left my corporate job and then I got into a direct sales business, and then I became a mom, and then it was in corporate America, when you become a mom, you have 6 weeks and then maybe 8 if you had a C-section, but then you go back to work or you lose your job, was my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I had left. So I was self-employed at the point when my son was born, and his dad was deployed at the time.
Oh,
and
wow.
He came home at that 6-week mark. my son was 6 weeks and a day old, and I was picking his dad up at the airport. And so I would have had to kiss my husband hello, kiss my baby goodbye, and go back to work. And it was like that moment, I was like, I am so glad that I started what I started when I did. And so I love that story. But I also, what I love about your story is that you took charge of this situation. You're like, there is no way I can be mom of four, support my son, and work 50 hours a week. And so you started
Couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And take care of myself so that I could take care of everybody else.
Oh, like, yeah. That
right? So it was, yeah. I mean, at the time, people are like, you're crazy. Like, you're giving up like a great paying job, good benefits. And I'm like, none of that matters if I've got nothing left in the tank.
Yeah. Isn't it funny? Isn't that funny that people are like, well, you got a good paying job and good benefits. And it's like, yeah, but I'm actually like every day I want to slit my wrists. Like,
yeah, it was truly I was at the point, it was just trying to juggle all the things and be all the things. It was sucking my soul dry. And there was no balance. We had no balance in our household. And remember, my youngest two are twins. So when my son was diagnosed, they were 2. I had a 5-year-old daughter and my son was 14. So I had teenagers, preschoolers, and toddlers.
Oh my gosh, all the stages.
All the stages.
Wow. I mean, that just right there is enough to, pack it up.
It didn't seem like that was an option.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Was Pilates always a passion, or was it like, I got to find something else to do? What can I do?
No, like I found Pilates shortly after my son was diagnosed, and I just was like, I have got to move my body because I just had a set of twins. Like, I was in my mid-30s. Like, I was feeling like my body felt like I was aging quick, sitting at a desk for 50 hours out of a week. And I had found Pilates, and honestly, the first day I went into class, I laid on the reformer, which is the machine that has springs, in case anyone wonders. And I thought, oh my gosh, this machine, I can lie down and I can move, and it's going to hold my tension for me through this spring, and I can just, in this moment, can just move. And I was hooked in that moment. I never thought, oh, could I teach this and open a studio and that sort of thing in that time, but I was like, this is returning me to life bit by bit. I'm getting my strength back. My soul is coming alive again, and my mind. It was like a moving meditation, honestly, for me.
That sounds lovely.
It is. It is. I do love it. And then literally I quit my job like on a Wednesday, and I started Pilates school on a Friday, and I never looked back.
Wow. So you were like, I got to find something else, and you ended the job, and then you jumped into class a couple days later. Sounds like something I would do.
Why put a buffer in there? Like, let's just go.
Teacher that talks about there's two types of people. There's the kind of people that jump off the cliff and then check to see if they have a parachute. And then there's the other kind of people that pack the parachute but never jump because they want to make sure they have everything that they need. And so neither one is really great. A little happy medium is best. But because if you don't have a parachute, then you splat.
Yeah.
But
I always say, like,
Go ahead.
I always say, like, I jump with my heart, and then like my brain catches up.
Very, very accurate description of me as well. It's like I have a decision, like when I was in my early 20s before children or marriage. I was like, okay, I don't like the position that I'm in anymore. So I'm going to transfer positions and I just moved to Yosemite. I gave a 30-day notice to where I was living, and I moved to Yosemite. And then I met my husband, and my life changed. But it was I look back at that girl, and I was like, I kind of miss her sometimes.
I think we're kindred spirits. But I also think, you know what, as moms, we have to like make sure we cultivate and keep a little of that, because you know, that's really sometimes where our magic is. And we can outthink ourselves out of anything. And sometimes we do just have to like take that leap of faith and jump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can let other people talk us out of stuff, like the people that were talking to you about your studio. And
Oh, totally. Yes. We just have
So
to be
what
really
do you-
careful who we listen to.
Absolutely. The best thing that I pulled away from my direct sales business, well, there was a lot of things, but this is the one that's relevant right now, is don't take advice from anybody that we'll just let that land.
It's right. So true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that you so you help women now in your studio? Are you a coach as well, or you do
I am.
Yeah.
So I also am a life coach. I did the Jay Shetty program a few years ago, because I felt like so much of what I do in a Pilates studio is coaching. I can teach the exercises, but I'm like, I kind of think I need some frameworks here, because we are dealing with fear and limiting beliefs and, you know, all those other things that, you know, we carry with us. But I do training in person, and I do some virtual stuff. I also am a teacher trainer, so we certify teachers as well. And my mission is really to just, you know, create teachers who can go out in the world and create sustainable, thriving businesses in the Pilates industry.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with Pilates. I know it's a thing, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing that's growing, you know, in popularity. It's, you know what, it's a low impact. It's so good for us women as we get older, because it's improves strength, improves flexibility, and it's easy on the body. It's easy on the joints, and it allows us to keep moving. And I'm really passionate about, you know, creating a studio and a community that's really inclusive. And so, because, you know, our family, we've got a kid with neuromuscular disease, like I love working with those special populations who, to be honest, perhaps benefit more from Pilates than, you know, just the average person walking in. And to me, it's like, how do we create that space and build community around that? Because my big things are, you know, connection, collaboration, and community. And I believe that's what we experience in every, you know, interaction we have with other people, and even within our studio. You know, I always say they come for the Pilates and they stay for the community.
I love that. That's such a huge thing that we're missing, I think, especially post COVID. But I think it was there before. I'm just only noticing it because of COVID, because I had, you know, I had my coaching community and I had my direct sales community, and like I didn't recognize really until my last podcast guest was asking me about the community, the community that I had when I was a new mom. And she's like, how did you know to like, or how did you cultivate that? And I was like, I've just always had friends. Like you look up extrovert in the dictionary and there was my picture. And it, you know, it was like, and there was never a point, I can't think of a point in my life where I didn't have friends. There's been a recent time of my life where my friends were more virtual than in person, the last 4 years specifically. And part of it, and so, but the connection that I feel with people virtually is so similar to the connection that I feel with people in person, that I didn't miss anything. Just being online this way. I'm
I always
starting to
say,
recognize that's not 100% true, because
right.
like I'm just not in the room with a bunch of people all the time anymore. But like yesterday I was, and I was like, oh, this does feel good. It feels all yummy
Yeah.
and warm with people.
Yeah. And I think, like, I think COVID did change us for sure. And I think, what I think the blessing in it was like some of my best friends, these relationships we've cultivated online, and then we've come in person, and it's amazing. And I think like geography isn't our limitation anymore. Like that's kind of the cool thing. Back to that community, if I may just share a little bit about our journey through COVID so my son now lives in a long-term care facility. It's assisted living. As this disease continues to progress, and we're getting to the very advanced stage of this disease. But during COVID, and I'm in Canada, that I was still the caregiver, and we did not see him for 88 days. And then it was open, close, open, close. And when we talk about a lack of just that connection piece of being like, literally, I always kind of describe it like for almost on and off for 2 years, they were literally sent to their room and told to stay. And we've got to do better, because this has had real impact on them as the patient, but also honestly on our entire family as a caregiver, and just as a family member, that it was incredibly difficult. And I do think there is still something about that power and that feeling in a room full of people that just can be like, oh, I didn't know I was missing this, but I was totally missing this. Yeah.
I definitely, I love that we had the ability to connect with people. I have a friend in Canada that I went to see, I think last year or the year before. Time has no meaning anymore, so it's like it just all.
I know.
No, computer, I don't want to restart right now. This would be a bad time to restart. Thank you very much. But I went to visit her last year, and I don't know, like I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for COVID, and she and I wouldn't have become the close friends that we are if it wasn't for COVID. So there was definitely, before we hit record, we started talking about 4 questions that a girlfriend of mine shared with me. And one of them is, what was the opportunity and what's the blessing? And so there were, I know that there was a lot of upheaval in a lot of people's lives. And, but I think one of the biggest blessings is hopefully that people recognized the need for community and the need for other people out that don't live in their house.
Yeah. And I think that, and you were talking about like, as a new mom, having that network. I think sometimes I always joke, we need like to bring it back as the kids get into teens and later teens. Maybe we don't bring the kids with us, but the moms still need that connection group to know, like they just need the support, and we weren't meant to do it alone. Like we actually need each other. We need each other as resources and sounding boards, and just that connection piece, so that we don't feel like we have to carry that burden alone.
Yeah. I have a virtual mom group that meets every week, and that's the biggest takeaway that I get from almost every meeting, is that the moms are just happy to know they're not alone. They're not the only ones going through what they're going through. And sometimes there's so much power in that realization. Like, you are not alone is a battle cry in one of my communities.
Yeah.
Right? You're not alone.
You're not alone.
I'm here with you. I'm right walking this path. But I love that your community is not only focusing on the physical, but it's focusing on especially essentially the spiritual side of being human.
I don't know how to separate the two.
Yeah. Because
So,
there's no
right?
comparison.
There's not. And you know, I think like we can, if we just focus on taking care of the body, yeah, like it will get stronger and it'll move and all that. But if we don't take care of the mind and the spirit that goes along with it, like it's really about restoring the whole body health. And all of those containers go with you all day long. And for me, I just want people to feel like they have somewhere to go. It's a positive experience. It's something for them, and they've done something for themselves and leave feeling better than when they came in. Every time.
That's amazing too. And do you find that moms struggle with doing something for them? Like, is there guilt associated with doing something for themselves?
It's not sometimes, and I think more often than not, by the time they're like, I actually have to do something for myself because like my back is hurting or whatever it is, they feel guilty they waited too long. And it's almost like they just need that permission slip to be like, let's do this for you. And it's 100% for you. And I always say, like, for me, like when you're in my studio, I'm going to give you an experience, but the best thing that I can do is give them a great experience and let them feel the best they possibly can. And then they get to go home or back into their communities and return that back out into the world. And that's like, that changes lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a piece of advice that you want to share with moms?
Well, look, you're not alone. And I think it is so important to find your people. And if you don't find them initially, keep looking because they are out there. All of us are walking a journey. It doesn't look like our Instagram page. We're walking a journey. The ingredients might be different, but it's really, we're all dealing with stuff. And to have that core support is essential. It is essential for us. And I think we underestimated it for a long time, but I feel like the movement is coming back where we're like, no more. I need my girls. And at times, like, when I've had a rough day, I need those girls to just like, let me cry and like, remind me it's okay. And I think we just sometimes need that permission slip to keep asking and keep looking for those people. And when you do, I think it makes you a better mom and a better person. Yeah.
I think it's really important to, like, moms think, well, I want to be a good mom, so I'm just going to pour everything into my kids. And the reality is that that part of being a good mom is being a whole person. And then showing your kids how to be a whole person because they're watching the show.
And I think, so many, and I can say, like, at a time where we were dealing with great chaos with a really sick kid and a lot of unknown, that it was really challenging for me to be like, how do I parent these other three when I'm facing this horrific diagnosis with one? And I think it just, again, being able to say, like, I don't have to do it all. You know what? I don't have to know it all. We can find out. We can, use that resource. And when we start, then as I started to creep out of that, I call it really like a black hole for about 2 years. We come out of that, then we start to show our kids like, you know, I'm a wife too. So like dad and I need time together, and mom needs her time to go for a walk or get a workout in. And I'm happy to take one-on-one time with, you know, each kid if we can make that happen fairly frequently. And I need my, all my girlfriends, so that it's that we're multifaceted. And I think for me anyways, when I kind of came out of that and was like, no, like I'm more than just a mom of a kid who's sick. There's still a lot of living left to do. So I better snap out of that one real quick here, because this is going to be a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah. And it's probably really easy to slip into grief immediately. And when the reality is that your son is still here and you do still have access to him physically. And it's not, I imagine, I can't imagine. I can and I can't, it's a journey no matter what. But he's still here now, and you can enjoy the time that you have with him while he's here. And how I don't know if I'm allowed to ask how he's doing, and you kind of mentioned a little bit, but
I mean, it's progressive. So, we lose a little, I feel a little every day in some ways. But again, for me, a big lesson was like, when I flipped that switch and was like, as long as he's breathing, he's living, and we're going to live. We're going to fit as much life into whatever we're going to be given. And we're going to somehow find some joy in that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Is there a book that's been instrumental in your personal development journey?
So I'm a huge reader. I'm like, oh, how do I pick one? But actually, the one I pick for me is Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. And I picked that one probably not for the reasons that most people would think I would pick it. And you kind of touched on it where you said, you go to grief. And what Atlas of the Heart actually taught me, and my girlfriends kind of laugh at me because I read this book and I texted them right away and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's anguish. It's not actually grief. It's deeper than grief. And I was like, that's awful. I'm like, no, it's actually a blessing. There's a word for it. It's what I'm trying to tell you is the pain is deep and it's anguish. I don't stay there. But Atlas of the Heart gave me vocabulary to really uncover what were the feelings, because it wasn't anger. There is grief, and that happens in a different way, but at the bottom of the pit of it, and there's a picture in there of a painting called Anguish. And I'm really literally the mama bear protecting the baby as, there's ravens or crows waiting. And I'm not going to let them get to it while we're here.
Yeah.
And that's, so everyone is like, that's kind of sad. I'm like, no, there was such a relief for me. I'm like, that's the word. I even took it to my therapist of like, anguish. She's, oh my gosh.
I love that.
So it's not a traditional personal development book, but I think, I've also used it in my coaching business, but I've also used it with my kids in, really articulating what are those feelings. And the word might be different for all of us, but when we have some language to express it, it actually, diffuses a lot for us. And for me, there was great comfort in anguish. I did send Brene Brown a little note. I said, thank you for anguish.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, it kind of goes back to the Yana thing. Like, you're not alone, and somebody was able to, there's got to be a little bit of relief. I mean, just the way that you were describing it. And I've had those moments too, where called a friend and I've been like, oh my gosh, it's this. And they're like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, no, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my friends expect it now. I think that one blew that one out of the
Where can our listeners find you?
So they can find me. I'm on Instagram and it's Arc Pilates. So it's arc.pilates, Pilates. My website is www.arcpilates.ca because I am in Canada. Those are usually the best places to find me. But yeah, reach out. You're not walking alone. And I love any opportunity to build community and grow together with community.
Awesome. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here and sparking my curiosity about Pilates. And I've been, contemplating like, what's the difference between yoga and Pilates? But you probably have answered that question a million times. So I'll just go Google.
That's the hardest question for Pilates teachers to answer right there.
You bet.
It is. Thank you so much for having me. This has been just amazing.
You're welcome. And so we'll have another episode of Imperfect Momming for you all coming next week. And until we meet again, keep healing. Bye, guys.